How's everybody feeling?
Lousy.
Okay. Lousy? Who's
Oh,
lousy?
God, me.
So, just think about it. This before we go, and there's a reason for me doing this. On a scale of 1 to 10, just check in with yourself. What would you give yourself? 5? 7? 3?
10.
10? That's good. Anybody on a 0? Because if you are, you're dead. So, welcome to Lightwaves. I'm Alan Denman. I'm just going to say a little bit about myself. I don't really want to talk very much about myself. There's something far more important going on that involves all of us. I'm British. I'm primarily a filmmaker and storyteller. It's been my great love all my life, words and telling stories. And I live most of the year in Los Angeles. But underpinning everything in my life is really kind of a search, and that is, I want to know, from the time I was like 14 or even earlier, I was thinking like, why the hell are we here? How did this all get to be like this, you know? And so I am committed to finding out more and more about why we're here. And my big commitment is to evolving. I think if this is my view, is that this is the purpose of life. We're here to evolve. All right? So, you know, there's something bigger going on than just filmmaking and storytelling. And, you know, I've done a lot of things in America. America's been an amazing experience for me because California, you do meet incredible people. I mean, I've sat in Indian sweat lodges. I've been to Burning Man, which is a community without money, for a week. You know, that's an amazing experience. And I've met wonderful healers. I interviewed Carl Johan Calleman. How many people have heard of Mr. Calleman? Mayan Calendar and the transformational consciousness. We'll talk more about that in good time. And I interviewed him. I interviewed Michael Newton, Journey of Souls. Anybody heard of his book, Journey of Souls? I didn't bring much down with me, but I did put a reading list and a film and video list on the desk. So, you know, if you're interested in this rather vast topic, that's a kind of a starter pack there for you. Okay? So, here we are, Whitstable in Kent, 28th of August, on a little piece of land known as England, on a little blue planet known as Earth, somewhere in a galaxy, out of billions of galaxies. It's all rather incredible when you think about it. When you step back and really look at your life and look at the stars and look at the vastness of everything, you do think that this should be here, that we should be here. Is incredible. But there's something else I would add to this, and that is that what we're talking about here is consciousness. So now that's even more incredible, that we are conscious. The universe, if you like, as we represent the universe, is conscious of itself. This is a major, major step, as we'll see when we get on to talk about the Mayan calendar. So here we go then. I've got a PowerPoint show. We'll go through slide by slide, and I don't really want to take questions until the very end. I think I've got a flow. Once I get in a flow, I tend to just keep going. So, here we are. Well, we ought to just say something about the title. Okay. How many people fear for the future? Could put your hands up. How many people think that we're going to hell in a handbasket? Anybody? Few people, probably actually quite a lot of you think that. And there's been a lot of scaremongering around 2012. You know, the film came out, the 2012 movie, and, you know, giant tsunamis covering Everest or whatever, and land masses disappearing and so forth. And, you know, it's very difficult to get an objective handle. I would say it's actually impossible. And you'll see why at the end, to get an objective handle on what is going to happen. But just remember this, that we as human beings have got a caveman brain inside us, and we want security. So we're always concerned about security, and a lot of our fears get projected outside and get magnified and so forth. So just on my point of view on this is that I think something incredible is happening. It's nothing to be afraid of. Doesn't mean to say we're not going to go through a lot of stuff. We will. But where we're going to and what is really going on is really rather something special, as we'll see. So I've divided this talk into three parts, which I think the first question is, where have we been? You know, now when I'm talking about where have we been, I'm not talking about where we've been physically, but in terms of our thinking. Well, we go back far enough in time. Let's see if this works. Once upon a time, science and religion were one. Then, Western science gradually came to study life as a purely material phenomenon. The sacred and the secular became divided. So, referring to Lightwaves, it says under the tagline, fusion of science and spirit. At the moment, they're not fused together. And science, mainstream science, still regards life, most scientists do, as a purely physical phenomenon. Okay, so that's okay. We've been thinking about this for thousands of years. So, actually, I jumped a slide one. Can I go back? No. Hang on. So, Western empirical science came to see the universe as really like a gigantic machine. And the belief was, up until the end of the 19th century, that if scientists studied it for long enough and in enough depth, and they had the right gadgets and everything else, they'd come to understand all the workings of the universe. Okay? It's a giant piece of machinery. However, a certain man came along. So material, what did science have to say about consciousness? Well, it really wasn't a very important topic. Material science saw, and really mainstream science still sees consciousness only as a byproduct of matter. Right? So the primary thing in Western science is matter. But then something happened. A rather clever guy turned up, Mr. Einstein. Okay? And this is, the search for the primary element of matter. So we get down to atoms, and then we start to get down to subatomic particles, and it all goes to hell. Right? Normal time and space don't exist anymore. He came up with a very simple, very profound equation, E equals mc squared. So what he's really saying, I'm not a scientist, so I'm kind of, as a layman, gathering all these thoughts together. But really what he's saying is this, is that matter is energy. So what we think of as matter here, all this stuff and our bodies and all this is not truly, there's something deeper. There's an underlying and invisible aspect to matter, which is energy. Okay, so this then is the birth of the quantum universe. All right? Matter is energy condensed. Scientists are still struggling with, well, okay, if there is this quantum universe and all this sort of energy floating around, how does that become matter? That's a very profound question. But let's just stay with the finger. Well, some of you may have heard of David Ash. He's written a book called The Vortex Theory. He has a theory that what happens is that energy spins in all directions simultaneously. I know this sounds weird, but in so doing creates a mass. And so he's got a theory that explains how we go from the energy state to the material state. So we're spinning into material form. So, now we start to have to pose some questions. What if this underlying field of energy, which we can call the quantum universe, is actually consciousness? In other words, it's the field of energetic intelligence that is actually upholding and generating all this material stuff that we see. Planets, galaxies, stones, pebbles, everything. There is an underlying matrix which we don't see. We only start to observe it with subatomic microscopes and things like that. We're only glimpsing it a little bit from a Western perspective. Eastern perspective, maybe we'll get onto that, but they've been perceiving it for thousands of years, of course, but in a different way. So, if the quantum universe is like sort of this vast intelligence that is manifesting matter, is it possible that the quantum universe is consciousness itself. And if that's the case, then consciousness then becomes primary to matter. So what we should be looking at to understand who we are, how the universe got here and so forth, is consciousness. So my question then is, has Western science really got it back to front? They've been looking in the wrong direction for thousands of years, saying it's all material, and in fact they should be looking at energy, consciousness, which we're starting to do now. So you can see, in talking just about a shift of consciousness, in the last 100 years, 1905, when Einstein first created that equation. So we've got about 100 years of a shift. Now, everything begins with a thought. So the thought has grown and spread out, so to speak. So really, 100 years is not a very long time in the history of the human race, certainly in the history of the universe. So in a very brief amount of time, we are moving from a material consciousness to what one would call an energy or spiritual consciousness. So, spinning. So what you notice about this image and this image, galaxy, planet. Any similarity? What's the similarity?
Spiral.
Spinning. Right? So here again, you start to look at forms from the microcosm to the macrocosm. Don't they start to look a little bit similar? So here's another question that comes up. Oh, okay, no, that's wrong. I've got to delete that one. So, is this, let's say that there is this gigantic, massive field of energy, which we can call the quantum universe. And it's like a gigantic soup, and things are sort of appearing in it, planets and galaxies and so on. Is it just an accident? Is it just somehow or other it got there? Or is it an intentional universe? This is the very, very important question. Is there a purpose to it? I mean, why the hell have all this stuff? Okay? And if it is intentional, what has it been designed for? Okay. So let's find out. So let's do a little bit of a discovery and a little bit of exploration of where we are at the moment. So where are we now? 2011. Well, just to mention two things that I think, if you're interested in this, would be worth looking at, is Johan Calleman's book, The Mayan Calendar and the Transformation of Consciousness. And the Mayan calendar goes north in now, if we have a faith in life, you may have kind of had this experience, even at a very small level, that if you ask for something, it appears. But he had that experience, I really wish for something, and it goes so much, I want to go and see so-and-so, and a ticket appears, or somebody turns up in a car. Right. So this is another aspect to, the shift in consciousness, that instead of seeing the universe as a hostile place, we see it as something that we can talk to, that we get a response, and there's a dialogue here, a conversation. All right. So, if we say, well, where is there information on where we're at? Where, we can look at the past, we know what happened in the past, but we don't have a map for the future. We'll ask. And this is what people have been doing for the last, 30, 40 years. And you'll find information in the Mayan calendar. Now, I would say here that this is a Western interpretation of Mayan philosophy. And you must, when I first got into it, I was absolutely mind blown. I thought this is the most incredible information. But you need to absorb it and then make up your own mind about it. So we're going to look at a little bit on the Mayan calendar. Alright, because this is where all the 2012 stuff and the hopes, the fears, all the scaremongering, the visionary stuff, the crazy theories about what's going to happen, it really comes from the Mayan calendar, or at least our awareness of the Mayan calendar, books published on websites and so forth. The Mayans were a very diverse race. They weren't one people. They were spread across Central America. They were very advanced. They had writing, and they were an autocratic society. So they had an elite, and the workers underneath, so forth. I've been there, I've been to some of the temples, I've seen some of their sacrifices, fairly horrific. They were a mixture as people in terms of their level of consciousness. But what they had this kind of incredible mathematical consciousness. And in the 1950s, a stone was discovered in Central America called the Stele of Coba. Coba was the place, and Stele is the sort of tall stone. And on it were inscribed all these Mayan numbers. And these, when they were deciphered, were seen to be a description of the evolution of the universe in time periods. So the Mayan calendar has got 9 levels of evolution, and their temples have got 9 steps. And as you notice, the base is very broad, and the top step is very short. And at the heart of the Mayan calendar, of the Mayan society and philosophy, was their sacred calendar called the Zolkin. And this said that the universe is a sacred place, and that the divine intelligence has 13 intentions and 20 aspects. And when you multiply these together, you come up with a calendar that's 260 days long. So you can see that their calendar was not based upon physical phenomena, that is, the passage of the Earth around the Sun. It was based on something else altogether. Their thinking was connected to some other aspect of creation. And what this meant was that every day was sacred. So there was not like some days when, one day a week where you went to church, that was a sacred day. Actually, every day and every hour, every moment of creation was sacred. And just to throw in a little bit of science here as well, we talk about the Big Bang. So, like, somebody pressed a button 14, 15, 16 billion years ago when it went, and then walked off. The truth of it is, the universe is being created every moment. That spinning of energy that goes on an unbelievable scale is happening literally moment by moment as we're speaking now. So there is, for the Mayan people, there was not one moment that was not sacred. Every day was sacred. And moreover, when people were born, they were named from the day that they were born on. So, and each day had an intention and purpose. So you knew as a Mayan child what your purpose in life was. Now, wouldn't that solve a lot of psychological difficulties in the West? If you knew that you were born for a certain purpose, and it's not the same as somebody over here, but you got yours. That's pretty cool. So this is a calendar that placed people within the universe. It said the universe is intentional. We all are part of that. We each have our own individual intention, which adds to the whole. And then we look at the Gregorian calendar. The Gregorian calendar, which was instigated in 1583, of course follows the passage of the sun, 365 and a quarter days long, in fact. And what it's been used as really a political, economic vehicle. It's been used really to program the majority of the world into a Western way of thinking. And the basis of the Gregorian calendar is purely materialistic. It's based upon physical phenomena. Okay, so just think about that. Ian Longo talks at length on this in his video series on YouTube. But, if you want to control people, you control their minds. And a very good way to control people in massive numbers is to impose your calendar upon them. And this is what they literally did. I mean, they persecuted and burnt most of the Mayan books, and this happened in lots of indigenous cultures and so forth, but that didn't have the same calendar, the same sense of time, the same relationship to the universe as the Western materialistic invaders, imperialists. So, here's the brain. So what's going on here? So now let's just think about where is information put inside us? When we're taught there's 365 and a quarter days, where is it put? It's stored in the brain, of course. So think of our brain as being like a biological computer. And what we're taught at school, what we're taught through our language, through the very structure of our language, past, present, and future. The subject, verb, object. The grammatical structure in itself is actually programming our minds. It's possible to conceive of a language in which there isn't a subject and an object, in which there is a oneness, therefore. So just think about this. But in particular, the Gregorian calendar, that's printed on school. One of the first things we learn at school, 7 days of the week, 365, the names of the months, and so forth and so forth. So think of this incredible piece of apparatus up here. Think of this as a computer. And think of it also as a receiver and a transmitter. So you look at the body, consciousness is known to be related to electromagnetism, and our DNA has got a very small electromagnetic charge that, we are energetic beings really inside when we get past the physical barrier. And, every thought, just consider this, that we are transmitting and receiving thoughts all the time. So what we think is very, very important. And if this is an attractive, intentional universe that will answer us, then we have to be very careful what we think, because what we think is going to come back to us. Just give you a little example. My son, Zach, who's coming later, has a friend in London who wanted desperately to get a flat through the housing association. He comes from a wealthy background. But to do that, he said, I'm poor, I've got this problem, I've got, and really made himself got himself in a very powerful victim state. It's interesting, he now has cancer. So he kind of manifested that. So yeah, that's a bit of a scary story, that, but it works the other way. If you think very, very positive thoughts, you will attract very positive things. So the brain is a receiver and a transmitter. What about the universe? Universe using light. Now that here we are starting to get onto a very big idea, and that is that the shift of consciousness is not just occurring here on this tiny human scale, it's occurring throughout the universe. And what I'm wearing here, this is a Mayan symbol, it's known as the Hunan Ku, which is their symbol for the center of the universe. And what people are saying, this is a mind-blowing idea, take it, think about it, and that is that the whole universe is going through a shift of consciousness. It's like somebody turning up the frequency, so we're increasing, we're raising the frequency of consciousness throughout the universe. How's this done? Instantly, through the transmission of light from galaxy to suns, from suns to planets. Everything on the planet is getting connected or contacted by this upgrade. We're moving to a higher frequency of consciousness. So that's a pretty big idea, I thought, when I first heard that. I thought that's amazing. So how about we then think we've got our individual nervous systems. You know that the Earth has ley lines running around it. How about the universe itself is a gigantic nervous system? And everything is connected within. So this is a piece of science. This is known. You can read about this on the internet. The electromagnetic frequency of the Earth is rising rapidly. So where we are now, that was the question for this section, is we're in transition. So think of it like an upgrade. Consciousness is being upgraded now. And this has already begun. So what the Mayan calendar says is that we are at the end of a series of cycles of evolution that go back to the Big Bang. The universe has never been at this point before. We are at the very cutting edge. Something incredible is going to happen. And let's find out a little bit more. So what is going to happen? Where are we going? Good question. Okay. Well, it is said that the frequency of consciousness that is now coming in, permeating the universe, is the frequency of oneness. Right? This means one with our own self. We're fully connected. Mind, body, spirit. We know our feelings, we're aware of our body, we are masters, really, of our consciousness. We're one with each other. So we recognize that though there's a million differences, there's a oneness there. And this applies to both men and women, different races, different religions. Yes, an acceptance of each other. Or to just say something about this is that one of the projects I'm working on with my wife is a relationship project called Our Time. I'll put some cards there if people are interested. Because our belief is that probably a huge amount of the problem in the world goes back to the conflict between men and women, and obviously family. You look at the divorce rate, how this impacts children and so forth. And our project is to really give people information on how to have better relationships, how to communicate, and how male and female can really work in harmony together. So that's a project, and that is, for us, part of a very practical aspect of this shift of consciousness. One with the earth. We can't be against the earth, we can't pollute it, we can't destroy it, and we'll be connected to the universe as well. So what does that mean? I don't know exactly. Does it mean we recognize our brothers from other planets? Quite possibly. But definitely there's a sense of much greater connection now. We're looking way beyond where we've been. So will there be changes? It's very likely. What kind of changes? Or really anything that creates, if the new frequency is oneness, anything that creates a division. And money, of course, is used as a form of control. You could say there's nothing wrong with money in itself, but the way it's used, with all the inequality, the way it's used to manipulate and control people, that is not oneness. That's the opposite of oneness. That's separation, control. Look at our technologies. Well, we know God knows how many gallons of fuel a plane uses in a flight, but we will create technologies that are compatible with the Earth. Those technologies are waiting there for us to discover. Some of them are already in the process of being discovered. So our technology has to become. What about the way we heal ourselves, the way we treat ourselves medically? Okay, pharmaceuticals. Well, most pharmaceuticals, say many pharmaceuticals, there are wonders to Western medicine, but on the whole, pharmaceuticals are injurious to our bodies. There are much more natural ways to heal ourselves. And moreover, if you are a master of your consciousness and you know what you're thinking and feeling, you're not likely to get very ill. You're likely to be able to spot things early on and adjust and so forth. Most illness, it seems to me, or dis-ease, really comes from negative thinking. The thinking accumulates, becomes emotion. That emotion manifests in some part of the body. That's another very good book, by the way, Louise Hay's book called You Can Heal Yourself, where she had terminal cancer and healed herself, and then went on to study all the parts of the body and what they tell you about what you're feeling. That's very interesting. So, yes, our medicine's going to change, and our relationships are primarily, and most important of all, the relationship between man and woman, because men and women get together and have babies. So this is pretty vital that there is harmony here as well. So what is it that's stopping us upgrading? I mean, if this new frequency is coming in, what will stop us? You think, well, great, we're running to the light, we're going to have this great time and everything else. I don't know where you're all at, but in my experience, stuff comes up. And in the Mayan calendar, the last period, which is only 10 months long, in that period of time, it's 20 times faster. Things happen 20 times faster than the previous period. So a huge amount of stuff is going to be going on in this last period. So it does feel to me that there is some sort of acceleration taking place. It means like you have one good day, and then something comes up, and you have to deal with it, and then, okay, you've sorted that out, but be prepared for a bit of whitewater rafting, you know, it could get intense. So what stops us? Old baggage. Well, this is stuff that we carry with us from childhood, genetic stuff from our family tree, and collective stuff from our community, from our nation, from our tribe, from our religion. You know, the problem is that most of us don't feel very good about who we are. You know, we carry a lot of sort of negative emotions about ourselves. Now, if we are trying to connect, or there is the possibility of connecting with a much higher frequency of consciousness, we have to do something about that stuff. And the kind of golden rule with life is you either get on and do it consciously and willingly, or it'll happen to you. You're going to have to deal with it anyway. So, and one of the biggest things that stops us is fear. This is a massive component. So would you agree with me that there's a lot of fear in the world? Hell of a lot. Yeah. And fear has been used to control people for thousands of years. Fear through political tyrants and leaders, and fear through religion as well. Now you think about it, all this fear would disappear, because if we really knew that we were eternal, which we are, you know, not physically, our bodies will die, but in our consciousness we're eternal. We live in a timeless state. We really knew this. You know, we couldn't be controlled by fear. Nobody could control us. But where is the fear? The fear is actually inside us. So it's fear of the unknown, fear of death, fear of poverty, fear of illness, fear of old age. We have lots and lots of fears to choose from. And what does fear do to us? Let me ask you. Just think about that emotion. What does fear do to us? When you're in a state of fear, what happens to you?
Changes that vibration.
Pardon?
Changes that vibration.
Stops you from loving to lash out, get angry.
Pardon?
Lash out and get angry.
You can get angry, but that's anger then, of course, but you can do that.
Paralyzes you, stops you.
Yeah, paralyzes you. You know, the word petrify literally means to turn to stone. So if you have a lot of fear within you, you can see how this really stops you from opening up. And this is what I'm talking about, the brain. Your brain is so soaked with fear that there's all the really great synapses waiting to be stimulated and receive a higher frequency. They're not getting it because the fear shuts you down. That's what happens to us. So I think, you know, just to say, I'm very careful about how much television I watch. I don't watch it basically. I'll never watch films. Anything that is soaked in fear, be very careful, because we are naturally, energetically connected to everything around us. So what you watch, if you're not careful, you will absorb it. So, there's a chap called David Hawkins who's written a book called Power versus Force. He's very interesting, and I'm just going to put this out there. You see what you make of this. He has created a map of consciousness, and he says that and he's kind of given each one, each level, a numerical value. He said that the key thing is the threshold, the 200 threshold. All right? At that level, we start to take responsibility for ourselves. We start to think outside of ourselves. When we get to 350, where there's acceptance, self-responsibility, allowing other people to be themselves, being non-judgmental and so forth. But reason kicks in at 400, and reason has done an enormous amount of good. Let's just look at things reasonably. Think of science versus the medieval church. The earth isn't the centre of the universe. And that did help to free things up somewhat. But love, there are higher levels of love. The vibration of love is level 500. This is love of all life, love of all people, love of all living things. Enlightenment, 700 to 1,000. Well, not many of us are up there. Not yet. We're getting there, but not quite up there. But let's just talk a little bit about this here, because he says, and I kind of love this in a quirky way, he says 78% of the world live below the 200 threshold. In other words, these are individuals and cultures that are immersed in fear, anger, destruction, grief, guilt, all kinds of heavy stuff. These, in terms of their energetic frequency, are very heavy emotions, and they weigh us down. We feel, trapped within it. When we start to rise above this, then we start to loosen up. These lower energies don't have such a hold on us. And he says that for thousands of years, that the earth, people on earth existed in this state, but it is changing. 78% now, I still think, well, that's awful. But what he also goes on to say is that the people of a much higher level of consciousness, is not only is their consciousness is more powerful, there's more energy, it's a higher frequency, and it transmits more widely. So you could have one person who's very highly evolved sitting in, should we say, a crime-ridden area, and their energy could actually help to transform that environment. I know this may sound crazy, but let me just go with it for now. And then people at the very top, Jesus and Buddha, people like this, their energy was so incredibly high that it rippled out for thousands and is still rippling out for thousands of years. So you don't need, for a shift of consciousness, you don't need everybody to shift at the same time. Human history doesn't work like that. You have some vanguards, you have the teachers, the avatars and so forth, and they lead the way forward, a bit like wading through water, and they're leaving this great skirt of waves behind them, and then other people are coming behind them. So, 78% of the world live below the 200 level of consciousness, but it is getting better. So, what would this mean if we free ourselves from guilt, shame, grief, anger, fear, lower emotion? Literally, it means we're going to kind of clear out a lot of our synapses, our brains are going to be more open, and we will literally be able to receive more light. Okay? And then, what we'll see, and this is just a very, very simplified kind of suggestion, we're going to move from a place of separation to a state of oneness. We're going to go from a worldview that says there is a lack, it's dog eat dog, there isn't enough. We're going to go to a state of abundance where, have you noticed how one plant will produce 1,000 seeds? That's pretty abundant. It's like staring us in the face, all this abundance, really. But
5 minutes,
it's what we put in our minds, what we've been programmed, and what we programmed ourselves to think. And then we will shift from fear to love. Okay, you can see it on that scale of consciousness as, there's a bit of work to do for the human race to get through to the weaknesses. We can do it. So, and then our view of the universe will change. Not this is a hostile universe full of hurtling asteroids that are about to destroy Earth. This is a magical universe. And we will be playing like this figure here, creating magic. And so this is a lovely quote from David Hawkins. The universe holds its breath as we choose, instant by instant, which pathway to follow. For the universe, the very essence of life itself, is highly conscious. Every act, thought, and choice adds to a permanent mosaic. Our decisions ripple through the universe of consciousness to affect the lives of all. So, we start to get it. We've always been creating our own reality, even though we haven't believed it. Because even if you're below the 200 mark, you're still creating your reality. Just as a victim mentality, victim reality. But when you start to get it, what I'm thinking is coming to me, and you start to get that idea, we're creating our own reality. But where we're at, for the very first time in the universe, the Mayan Calendar says, is that we have the potential to create with all that is. Capital letters, God, cosmic intelligence, the One. There's many, many names, but this incredible intelligence that permeates everything. we have the ability, the opportunity to impact the past. I'm going to leave you with this idea that we are actually at the dawn of a new cycle of history. Questions then we ask ourselves. If we are the ones we've been waiting for, the big question is this: what is the future we wish to create?